What's going on, everyone? In this video I'm going to show you how to make a digital photo frame using a Raspberry Pi that works with Dropbox, where you can just put pictures in a folder and they show up as a slideshow on a screen. So here's what we'll need for this project. We need a Raspberry Pi and we need one that has Ethernet, an Ethernet port on it. So if you have a Raspberry Pi Zero, you might need to get a adapter for that, but this is the Pi 3 Model B. I have an SD card. You need at least 8 gigabytes. This one is 64 gigabytes. A adapter for the SD card to go into the computer. I've got this screen that I got on Amazon. Here's the box. It was like 30 bucks. And you need a screen that has HDMI, so I've got an HDMI cable and then the power cable for the screen. And then finally you need a Ethernet cable, which you're going to plug into your router, and then a micro USB cable to power on the Raspberry Pi. So the first thing we're going to do is get everything set up on the micro SD card. So I'll plug that into the adapter here. And then we're going to plug that into the computer. So there that is. The software that we're going to use is called Binary Emotions. Go ahead and just search that, or just go to binaryemotions.com. Scroll down and click on Raspberry Slideshow. And then you can read about the project here, but basically there's two versions of the project. There's the free version, which is called the release build, and then there's a paid version called the donors build, which you just donate right here, and then you get the full version, which includes SSH management, and basically it won't turn off after 10 minutes. So I'd recommend donating and getting the full version. That's what I'll be showing in this tutorial. But feel free to just download and follow along using this one. I'm not sure how far you'll get, but when you download it, it'll download in a zip file, and once you unzip that, you'll have two files in there, an IMG file and a README file. When you download it, make sure it's called RS, not RDS, because RDS is the other software here, Raspberry Digital Signage. So you don't want to get those confused. So if you're following this tutorial, we're using RS, Raspberry Slideshow. The other software you'll need is Raspberry Pi Imager, and that's what we use to get that IMG file onto the SD card. So you can download that at Raspberry Pi's website. I've already got that downloaded, so all we need to do here is run through these steps. We'll choose the Raspberry Pi device. I'm using a Raspberry Pi 3. Under Choose OS, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and select a custom IMG from my computer, and then click on that one, click Open, and then I'll choose storage and choose that 64 gig SD card, click Next, and then this says, would you like to apply OS customization settings? I'm going to click No because this is a pre-configured IMG file, so click No. It's warning me that everything on the card will be erased. That's fine. Click Yes. And then finally, type in your computer password, hit Enter, and then we'll wait for that to write to the SD card. Okay, once that's done, it says you can now remove the SD card from the reader, and we see that it's been ejected. So I'll go ahead and unplug that, and now we're gonna get everything plugged in on the Raspberry Pi and start to go through setup. So the first goal here is to connect to the Raspberry Pi from our computer. So put the SD card in. Now I have all these here in one place, but you might have your router in a different room, so it's not completely necessary that you bring the screen to the router for this setup. Just bring your Raspberry Pi to wherever the router is, plug it in, because we just need to plug it in one time to configure everything, and then we're going to set it up to connect to your Wi-Fi. So for this tutorial, I'll show everything here at once, but if you can't bring your screen over to be plugged into your Pi while it's plugged into the Ethernet, don't worry. You can still just go through these same steps, you just won't see what I see on the screen. But since I do have the screen here, I'm going to go ahead and plug everything in, and I'm going to get everything plugged in before I power on the Raspberry Pi. Alright, so I've got the SD card in there, I've got my Ethernet cable plugged in, I've got my HDMI cable plugged in and the monitor's turned on. So I'm ready to power it up. And just as a reminder, if you had to bring this into another room where your router is, you'll just have the Ethernet plugged in and the power cable plugged in, and then you'll go back to your computer to find the device. So we'll give that a minute or two to boot up. Once it boots up, if you do have a screen connected, you'll see that it starts to display some pictures, and these are just preloaded on the device and pre-set up just so you can immediately start seeing it working. But let's go back to the computer and bring up the website for this again. We'll go back to Raspberry Slideshow and then click on the Download and Use tab. So right here at the top it says some default images and videos are included for a quick functioning example. So that's what we were seeing when we plugged it in and things started showing up. So if we scroll down a little bit, we want to look at this using SSH part, and that's for the donors build only. And what we want to do here is connect to the Raspberry Pi from this computer so that we can set up Wi-Fi and give it our Wi-Fi name and password so that we don't need the Pi to always be connected to the router. So to do that, you see that it gives us the following default credentials: username Pi, password live. And what it doesn't say here that I've found out is that the host name is already set up, and that's Raspberry-Slideshow. So we can open up a terminal and then I'm just going to type SSH Pi, which is the username, at, and then raspberry-slideshow.local. And then it found it, so it's asking us for the password. I'll use this password right here, live, L-I-V-E. Click enter. And there we are. So we're connected to the Raspberry Pi from our computer right now using SSH. So if you're not sure how I got that Raspberry Slideshow hostname or what that means, you could go into your router settings and find the IP address. It'll show up on plugged in devices. But if you don't want to do any of that, just try raspberry-slideshow.local. It's going to search your network for any device with that name. And since this name comes pre-configured, it's going to find this device and go ahead and log you in. So it's just a reliable way to do this. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. And we saw it just logged in there. So now that we're logged into SSH, I'll type clear to just clear that up. And we're going to configure Wi-Fi. So on this page, I'm going to scroll down to the most asked questions part and then click on Wi-Fi right here. And we're going to follow these steps to configure our Wi-Fi network. So it says plug in Ethernet, which we have. But this says find the IP associated printed on the screen and connect to that, but we just connected to it using the hostname Raspberry-Slideshow, so we're good there. Now it says the output of ifconfig A or IP A must show a WLAN 0 interface. So I'm just going to copy that, put that in, and then it does. It shows that's the WLAN 0 interface. That basically means that the Raspberry Pi we have has a Wi-Fi capability. So I'll type clear there. Now give the following command. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it, hit enter. And then this says modify the etc network interfaces file. Before I do that, I'm going to go back to the SSH part of this right here. It says once you're in, type sudo-i for administrative rights root. So let me just go back in here and type sudo-i, and then that's going to bring me to the root privileges on this. So now I'm there on root privileges, and I'm just going to run this command again since I'm in root. Okay, now modify this interfaces file. So I'm going to type nano and then paste that. Nano is a text editor. So once I hit enter, it'll bring up this file. I'm going to use the down arrow key to just go down to the bottom, and then I'm just going to highlight all this. And then I'm going to paste it. And then right here it says WPA SSID. I'm going to type in the name of my Wi-Fi there. And then for this one, I'm going to type in my Wi-Fi password. Okay, once I'm done there, I'm going to type Control X to exit, and then Y, and then enter. And that saved that. So now it says then type in this. So I'll just copy that, paste it. Okay, so I think we're good there. You can verify everything with ifconfig-a. So let me type that. And there we go. So there's our WLAN 0, that's our Wi-Fi connection, and it's got an IP address. So we are successfully connected to the Wi-Fi now. So it says, if so, you can safely reboot by using the reboot command. Do not ever unplug the power cable. Then unplug the wired network cable. Okay, so I'm going to hit clear, type clear there, and then I'm just going to type right now shutdown now. And if we look back at the Raspberry Pi, it's still going through playing those example video and pictures. But once I hit enter here for shutdown now, it says the system will power off now, and then if we look at it now, it should shut down any second. There we go. So if you've got your Raspberry Pi plugged in a different room to the router, you can go through all those steps. You just won't see it shut down, but when you run that command, it will shut down. And at this point, we can go back to the Pi. Since we shut it down, we can safely unplug the power right there, and we can unplug the Ethernet cable, and we're done with that. Don't need it anymore. Because everything we just set up means it should connect right to our Wi-Fi if it's in range. So let's test that out. I'm gonna, with the Ethernet now unplugged, I'm just gonna plug this back in and it'll boot up. And now if your router was in the other room, you can bring the Pi back to where your screen was and go ahead and plug it in there so that you can see what's going on, because now you don't have to be plugged into the Ethernet anymore to be connected. That's the hope anyway. We're gonna make sure that's the case. by loading up and see if we can SSH back into it via Wi-Fi. So when this boots up, if you catch this screen, you'll be able to see WLAN 0, and then there's a line under it that says iNet, and then that shows the IP address. So we can use that instead of raspberry-slideshow.local if we want. Either one of those will work for logging in to SSH. Okay, so that's booted up. It's showing the example images again. So back in the computer, we're going to just try to log in again using SSH pi at raspberry-slideshow.local. And now the device isn't plugged into Ethernet anymore, so if it works, that means it is going over Wi-Fi. I'll use that password live, which as a reminder is right here, and we're in. So we've got it logged in through SSH, connected through Wi-Fi, so now we're ready to do all the configuration to set it up with Dropbox. So back on the main page, we can scroll down to where it says fetch media from your Dropbox account and click on that to expand it. And we'll just follow these instructions. It says you need to set up Dropbox Uploader first, SSH in as root, then launch Dropbox Uploader.sh and carefully follow the instructions. Okay, so we've SSH'd in, but now we need to connect it to root, or we need to sign in as root. Alright, so once we're logged in as root, let's just try typing that in and hit enter. Okay, great. It looks like it recognized that command and we've kicked off the Dropbox connection, so let's just follow these steps. This is the first time you run this script. Follow the instructions. Open the following URL and log into your account. Let's open a new tab. Alright, whoops. Now it says click on Create App, then select Choose an API Scoped Access. Exit out of that, create an app. Need to verify my email, alright. Okay, I've done that. Scoped access, that's what it said to say, scoped access. Choose the type of access you need, app folder. Alright. Enter the app name that you prefer. It must be unique. I'm going to call it Edit with Evan Screen. Now click the Create App button. Okay. Now the new configuration is opened. Switch to tab Permissions and check Files Metadata Read Write and Files Content Read Write. Click on Submit. Okay, so Permissions, Files Metadata, Read Write, and Files Content Read Write. Okay, looks like that one I can't change. Click the Submit button. Alright, it says permissions change successful. Now to tab Settings and provide the following information, app key. Okay, so now there it is. There's app key. So I'll just highlight that, click copy, and then I'm going to paste that, hit enter. Now it says app secret. So that's right here under it. I'll click show. Copy that. Paste that. Open the following URL in your browser and allow suggested permissions. Please provide the access code. So I'll make a new tab, paste that in. Make sure you know and trust this developer. Allowing apps from developers you don't know may put your data at risk. I'm going to click continue. I'm going to click allow. Enter this code to finish the process. Copy that. Paste that in there. Enter. Now it's just confirming everything. I'm going to hit yes, type Y, enter. It says the configuration has been saved. Alright, so let's go back to the instructions here. Finally, run Dropbox uploader.sh info to verify the login token is correct. Delete the root Dropbox uploader file if you need to start from scratch. Cool, I see my email, I see the name, so that all looks good. I think it did it correctly. Okay, so now we need to set up the media conf file to make sure that Dropbox is enabled. And I just ran this command here, which searched the Raspberry Pi and found where that file is. So you don't need to run this because it'll be in the same place for yours. But I'll just copy that. Type clear, and then I can just type nano, paste that, and it's going to go into the var lib rs folder media.conf, hit enter. And here's what that file looks like, and it looks like Dropbox is already enabled. So just looking at the defaults here, let's make this bigger. Looks like it's just displaying the default media. I'm gonna change some things here. I'm gonna put a pound sign in front of that to comment it out because I don't want that default media showing anymore. And then I'm going to do the same there. And I'm not using Google Drive, so I'll just go ahead and comment that out. I'm not using this either, so I'm gonna just comment all this out. So I'm basically just leaving the Dropbox enable line there. I'll type Control X, hit Y, and enter. And now I want to find where the other these other media files are so that I can disable them as well. Okay, so I found that those files are actually in this same folder as the that conf file. So I can type, just to show that, I can type cd var lib rs and then hit enter and then type ls, and this shows all the files in that folder. So we've got one called Instagram, one called media.conf, that's the one we updated, and then we've got these two images and then these two videos. So I can just type rm and then start typing that file name and then hit enter, and then it's gonna, now if I type ls, it's gonna show that it removed that default picture. So I'm gonna do that for the rest of them. So now if I type ls, we just see the Instagram folder and that media.conf folder. So now I'm just going to do a reboot, and what I'm expecting is to not see any pictures because I don't have any pictures in the Dropbox folder yet. But back on my Dropbox, now I can click on the folder that was created called Apps, and then I have a new folder called Edit with Evan Screen. It's empty right now. So I'm just going to go through here. I'm just going to type reboot now, hit enter, and then we'll look at this. It's going to reboot, and then I'm expecting to see nothing at all. So just to confirm that I see nothing at all, then that way I know that I deleted all the sample images. Then I'm going to put some files in my Dropbox and reboot again and see if those come up. Alright, it's been a couple minutes, so I think it would be showing something right now. It doesn't seem to be, so let's go back into the computer and let's see if we can log into it. Okay, so I'm back logged in. The Raspberry Pi is booted up. It's got no pictures going, so the next step to test this out, we're going to add some pictures here. I just downloaded these off of Unsplash. So I'll just upload them. And then if we look at the documentation, so down here under rule set, you see certain things like accepted image formats, video formats, how media will be displayed, and different things like that. So that's worth checking out and reading through. Back to our Dropbox, everything's been uploaded. We've got 4 pictures and they look like this. So let's go in where we've logged in and type sudo reboot now. Click enter, and then let's watch this reboot and see if it pops up and shows the pictures we just put in there. So here's the login screen where you can find the IP address. It's next to the word inet, so if you write that down, then that's another way you can use to SSH in. Alright, there we go. There's our first picture that we downloaded, and I'll just show you here. There it is, and this is also, this file starts with A, so it looks like it is playing in alphabetical order. And there's the next one, so it's transitioning pretty fast. So next, let's look at how to adjust the time that it stays on each picture. But I'm just watching through to make sure all of these are there. These are all ones that I've added, so it's connected, it's working. Now we've just got fine-tuning of changing the time it stays on each one. You'll notice that the bars coming in on the side, that is just related to the size of your screen. So this screen is 16 by 9, so if I just crop these pictures to 16 by 9 format, then they would fill the whole screen. So let's try to make these last. Let me just set a little timer here and see how long these are lasting. So like 12, 14 seconds, something like that. That's probably too short for a good photo frame. I would recommend having it like 1 to 5 minutes, so you can really just have one picture on the wall and then it's not commanding too much attention. You just look at it later and it's a different image. So let's go back to the documentation, and down here under most asked questions, and I'm on the download and use tab. Under most asked questions, click on change transition time, randomize images playback. So it says modify the related entries in etc.rs.conf. So let's get back in using SSH. Okay, and we're going to use nano, so type sudo nano etcrs.conf. And here's where we can edit some settings. So this says images playback settings, transition time S, where S means seconds, and blend time milliseconds. So here's where it says transition and blend time. Let's change the transition time to 60 seconds so that every minute it will change. So I'm going to just change that to 60. Everything else is good. Type Control X, hit Y, enter, and then I'm going to sudo reboot now. Click on that. And then now this is rebooting, so once this boots up and shows the first picture, I'm gonna break out the stopwatch again and see if we're now keeping on each picture for 60 seconds. Alright, there you go. Just crossed 1 minute and it just changed. So that's how you change the amount of time it spends on each picture. So that's all for this tutorial. Some future things you could add to this, which I've added to my screen that I have going at work, are like a scheduler to where mine turns on every day at 8 a.m. and then turns off every day at 5:15 p.m. So that's something you can add, but overall, this is it. This is what I wanted to make and show you all the steps. If you have any comments, put them in the comment section, and thank you for watching the video. I appreciate all my viewers, and if you have any thoughts, feedback, or just want to drop a comment or like, I really appreciate it. But yeah, thanks for watching and have a great day.